everybody. Welcome to the Sherburne County 4-H Weekly Challenge. My name is Danielle Ganje, and I'm the 4-H Extension Educator in Sherburne County 4-H. 4-H is all about learning by doing, and that can happen anywhere. So for the last few weeks, I've given you guys a weekly challenge that we can continue our 4-H learning at home together by doing some of these weekly challenges. So this week's challenge is pretty simple. It's all about sewing a button. People of all ages can do this with a little practice. Hand sewing is a great tool to have in your toolbox. You'll be prepared to make that repair when the button falls off of your jacket next time. So the supplies that you'll need to sew on a button are pretty straightforward. All you really need is a needle and some thread. You'll also obviously need the button that you plan to sew and the fabric that you're going to be adhering it to. As you can see, there's a couple different types of buttons. This one that I'm going to be using today has 4 holes. The first thing that you need to do is choose your needle and thread that you want to use. As you can see, there's lots of different types of needles. Some are really long and have big holes at the end, or some are pretty tiny and have tiny little holes to thread the thread through. Then you can pick your thread. You want to pick a thread that closely matches the fabric or the button that you're using. It's green, and I happen to have this fun multicolored green thread at home. When you're threading your needle, couple different ways you can do it. The easiest way is to probably just take your thread, put it through the needle, there we go, and then just double up the thread so that you have 2 strands coming off of your needle, and then you can knot the end. Another way to do it is to do a single thread and then sew through the fabric with just this one thread. That is a little trickier. So if you do that way, you want to make sure you have a good tail coming off the end of the needle so that when you are pulling it through, you don't lose the thread in the process. So for our purposes today, I'm going to double up my thread. That's usually the easiest way to do it. Another trick that you could always do, you see this little thing? This is called a needle threader. And if you struggle getting the thread through the hole on the needle, then you can use this tool, put the wire into the needle. There we go. So I have, you can see now that's hanging on there. And then you put your thread into that bigger hole on the needle threader. And then when you pull it through, it pulls the thread through with it. So, like I said, I'm going to double up the thread for today's purposes. Make sure it's even. And then at the end, one way to make sure you don't lose it is you just tie a little knot. I'm going to make a little hole at the end and tie a knot at the end of the thread. There we go. So now I have my threaded needle. And the first thing you want to do is actually, you want to make sure that you secure the thread into your fabric or garment or whatever you're using. I'm going to do this in the back side of the fabric. I'm going to put the needle through. Now, if you do the double thread with the needle, you might not need to do this because as you see, since it's already knotted, it takes a little bit to pull through. In order to really secure it, I learned this trick. You can make a loop. So I'm going to put the needle back through on the other end, kind of like you're already starting to sew something. You have a big loop there, right? Leave the loop up. So you want to leave that loop there. Bring your needle back up through. And then what you do is you put your needle through the loop 2 to 3 times. So 1, and then it looks like the thread is then twisting around that loop. So 2, and then 3. Then is when you pull it tight, and you have a little knot in your fabric, and then it's really not going anywhere. So now you want to make sure and decide where you want to place your button. I'm going to use this yellow button, and then I'm going to put it kind of at the end there. So thankfully I kind of already secured it in that area, so I know where to bring my needle back up through. So then you have your needle kind of pointing out there, and you put it through one of the holes in your button. Now, every time that you're doing a stitch with the button, you want to make sure you pull the thread all the way through. Now, when you're using a button that has 4 holes like this, most people like to make an X with the thread. So if it's coming out of this hole, you'll go diagonally, and you'll switch and go diagonally the other way. You can also make a box with the stitches and just go around into like a box shape around all 4 holes. But if you want to make it really strong, doing that X and making it diagonal into the holes is going to be your best bet. So it's coming out of this hole, and then I'm going to go down into the one below it. Now, after you've done a couple stitches, another little trick is you can take just a regular pin and then put it through that stitch so that as you're sewing, you're not making things too tight. With that pin there, it'll make sure you have enough loose room for your thread to wiggle slightly, because if it's too tight, the thread is more likely to break. So now that I have that pin in there, I'm just going to sew around diagonally in that line like I was talking about. Pulling my thread all the way through with each stitch. And then, once I've got a few stitches, on the back side, I'm going to find one of the other holes that I haven't used yet and come up through that other hole. There we go. And then you're going to go diagonally the other way and make a X there on the other side. Now keep in mind, thing you're going to use every day, like on a jacket or something like that, you probably want to make sure that it's attached very strong. If you're just doing a button on something for practice or decorative purposes, you might not need it that strong. You got your 2 X's there on your button. You can see then it's pretty strong, not going anywhere. So once you've got that, you can take your pin out and you can see, like I said, that button is pretty secure. To make it even more secure, you'll take your needle through the back of the fabric and up through it, but you're going to run the needle not through one of the holes, just up and out. And then you have your thread coming out on your right side of the fabric, just kind of under the button there. You can then just wrap the thread around the button a few times, anywhere from like 4 to 6 times. And that'll really make sure it's not going anywhere. Once you've wrapped it around there a few times, then you're going to stick your needle back under the fabric, have it come out, and then you can just finish it off right there. We're going to do that using the same method that we did to secure it initially. You're just going to make a loop. So you can see I'm actually just going to kind of go straight through the fabric, kind of like you would pin something, like a little safety pin or something. So it's going through so that I can make a loop. You can see I have a little loop there. I know I'm running out of thread, but then you just secure that by going through that loop 2 or 3 times and then pulling it tight. And then that will essentially knot it. So after you've done that, you can cut off your thread there, and voila, we've sewed a button on. We've gotten our button on our little scrap of fabric here. Obviously, you can use this for a lot of different reasons. You can do it just for fun, to practice your sewing skills, or you can also sew a button to repair a jacket or a shirt that a button might have fallen off. You also can just do it for decoration. I have made a tie blanket, and I sewed buttons throughout the top of my tie blanket, just to add a little decoration and flair to it. It also keeps the layers of fabric together then. One other project idea that you may have seen floating around online is to sew buttons on headbands. Love to hear from you on how it went. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what you sewed a button onto. I hope you guys are all staying safe at home. Until next week.